What if your neighbor's son tried to steal your pool, and the cops almost let him 6 a.m.? I was making coffee when cops showed up at my door. They said someone was drowning in my own pool. But when they arrived, Chase, the HOA president's son, was at my gate screaming about his swimming rights while trying to break the lock I had just installed. Then the officer asked him one simple question, and his answer made everything explode. That $200 smart lock I installed? It didn't just secure my pool. It exposed a criminal empire hiding behind the HOA. And you won't believe who's running it. After selling my software startup, I wanted peace, a slow life, nature, privacy. So I bought a house tucked deep inside Oak Creek Estates, a so-called gated paradise with a private pool lake access and, yes, an active HOA. The first 2 weeks were perfect. Mornings on the patio, birds, quiet, not a single red flag. But then, I noticed wet footprints near the pool. A moved chair, a faint smell of beer. At first, I thought maybe the landscaper's a neighbor's kid, but the next day, I found a torn condom wrapper floating in my pool. Then I checked my security cameras, and what I saw changed everything. A teenager taking cash at my gate, and a full-blown party happening on my property. And this was just the beginning. I pulled up the footage, time-stamped, crystal clear. Friday night, 11:27 p.m., a group of 20 to 30 people poured through my side gate. Music blasted, laughter, beer cans. They stripped off their clothes and jumped into my pool like it was a Vegas club, and right there, standing by my patio, was Chase collecting cash, handing out plastic cups and unlabeled bottles. He wasn't just partying, he was running a full-blown illegal event on my private property. No permission. No warning, no shame. I zoomed in on the cash. $20, $50. He had a fanny pack nearly full. Then the ad popped up on my phone. A sponsored Instagram post, Paradise Pool exclusive, DM for entry, my house, my pool, my nightmare. And I was about to learn this wasn't a one-time thing. The next morning, I installed a smart lock on the pool gate. Fingerprint access, auto log. No more surprises, or so I thought. 2 hours later, she showed up. Victoria Harlow, perfectly pressed blouse clipboard in hand and that look that could curdle milk. She didn't say hi. She pointed at the lock like it had personally offended her. "What is this monstrosity on your gate?" she barked. I explained I was the new owner and someone had been trespassing. She cut me off, finger in my face. "I'm Victoria Harlow, HOA President. And this lock violates Section 7.3.2. She demanded I remove it within 48 hours or face a daily fine of $500. Then she leaned in and whispered, "We like things accessible here." And just like that, I knew I wasn't dealing with a neighbor. I was dealing with a tyrant. Later that day, my neighbor Arthur waved me over. Retired, Vietnam vet. Kind eyes, said almost nothing until now. He looked around, lowered his voice. "Don't mess with Victoria." I laughed, nervous. "You mean the HOA queen?" His face dropped. "She's not just HOA. She owns the board. Has for years. He told me about Dragon Plaza, a real estate project she tanked years ago, lost everything. Ever since she's treated the HOA presidency like a throne. Power's all she's got left," he whispered. "And she guards it like a rabid dog." I asked, "What about Chase?" Arthur's voice went cold. "That boy's worse. Throws parties, sells booze to kids. And if you cross him, people get hurt." That night I checked the cameras again, and what I saw wasn't just illegal, it was terrifying. I reviewed the latest camera footage. This wasn't just a party, it was an operation. Kids, some barely old enough to drive, slipping through my gate. Chase standing at the center like a bouncer/bartender, handing out bottles without labels. I checked the yard. 6 crushed White Claws. A pile of cigarette butts. And then a wallet. Pink, tiny. Inside a high school ID, 15 years old. My stomach dropped. Then I found broken glass in the pool, and a bottle of imported vodka label peeled off floating among the leaves. This wasn't trespassing, this was trafficking. Then it got worse. A black pickup rolled up to my driveway. Two men stepped out, big, silent, tatted. They tossed something on my steps, a bloody hunting knife, and a note. "Stay out of it. Not your business." I reported everything. Trespassing, underage drinking, the knife, the bloody note. The officer barely looked up. "You have security footage?" I nodded, showed him the drive. He held it like it was toxic. "We'll look into it," he mumbled. Days passed. Nothing. I followed up, again and again. Finally, someone from City Records told me, "We have no file on that report. No complaint, no incident. My footage missing." I filed with zoning, licensing, public health. Same response. "We'll escalate it internally." Then silence. Emails bounced. Calls went nowhere. I even called a friend in the tax office. He whispered, "Marcus, you're wasting your time. You're not dealing with neighbors, you're dealing with connections." And for the first time I realized, this wasn't just HOA corruption. It was systemic. Someone was burying me. Arthur showed up again late evening. He looked over his shoulder before speaking. "You need to be careful," he said quietly. "People around here, we don't talk about Victoria." I asked why. "She's just a no." "She's not." His eyes were sharp now. "She's got people. She buries complaints. Has the sheriff on speed dial. Even the HOA board, they're all in her pocket." Then he leaned in. "Last guy who complained about noise had his house vandalized. 3 months later, he sold and vanished. I scanned the neighborhood. Windows closed, curtains drawn. Everyone saw. No one said a word. That night I walked past 2 women I'd waved to for weeks. They turned away, whispered. I wasn't just the new guy anymore. I was the target. I was walking home from a late-night grocery run. Quiet street. No cars, no lights. Then, slam. 2 men grabbed me from behind. Same guys, same pickup. No words, just fists. They didn't aim to rob me, they aimed to hurt. Ribs, knees, hands, calculated, brutal. I dropped to the pavement, bleeding, gasping. Then I heard heels. Click, click, click. Victoria Harlow stepped into the light, arms crossed. "See what happens when you stir the pot?" she said loud, making sure the neighbors heard. Then louder. "You've been harassing people since day 1. Marcus, this neighborhood was peaceful before you." She looked at me battered on the ground and smirked. "Next time, think before you install locks you don't understand." And just like that, I became the villain of her story. I spent the weekend nursing bruises and downloading backups. Every clip, every detail. But I needed more than bruises. I needed undeniable proof. So I started digging into that ad Paradise Pool exclusive. A public Instagram account. Over 5,000 followers. Every photo, my backyard, my chairs, my grill. Captions like, "Midnight Splash $50 cover." BYOB Sunset Vibes, Influencer Night. I followed the link in bio. DM for entry. QR code for payment. Connected to a Venmo account named Chase Harlow Events. He was selling access to my pool like it was a nightclub. And then Arthur messaged me. "We need to talk. It's about my granddaughter." His voice shook, and I felt it in my gut. This was about to get darker than I ever imagined. Arthur invited me in. He looked pale. He handed me a photo. "This is Stephanie, my granddaughter, straight A student, 16. He pointed at my pool visible in the background. "Last summer, she went to one of those parties. Came home barely conscious, vomiting, slurring. Hospital ran her blood work 24BA. That's lethal, Marcus. She told him Chase sold her a $60 bottle of vodka, but it wasn't vodka. It burned. Smelled like chemicals. His hands shook. She nearly drowned, and no one helped. They laughed. Filmed it. My chest tightened. Arthur's eyes filled with tears. That pool. It almost killed her. "Your pool," he whispered. "Victoria knows. She covers for him. She's been running this with him for years." That's when I knew this wasn't just about property anymore. It was about lives. I couldn't sleep. If there was one Stephanie, there were more. I searched TikTok, Snapchat, Reddit, typed Paradise Pool Oak Creek, and Boom Clips Stories Warnings. Teens passed out. Vomiting. One kid missing a week. Same backdrop, my pool. I followed a private group, got in. Dozens of testimonies. All led back to Chase Harlow. But here's the kicker. One post leaked a screenshot of Chase arguing with Victoria. He whined, "I do all the work." She snapped back, "I handle the cops, the HOA, the neighbors that's worth 80%. She wasn't just covering for him. She was the boss. A mother, a tyrant. The mastermind behind a teenage black market booze ring worth hundreds of thousands. And no one dared touch her. Until now. 3 days later, I got a letter. Certified. No return address, inside a lawsuit. $50,000 in emotional damages filed by Chase Harlow. Claiming I defamed him, harassed his business, violated HOA privacy guidelines, the firm Harlow Bishop and Creed. Sounded legit until I Googled it. Their license was revoked 3 years ago. Shut down for fraud. But somehow, still operating. I called the number on the letter. Dead tone. Then I got an email. Back off or we escalate. You've been warned. They wanted me scared, isolated, pressured into silence. I showed Arthur. He just shook his head. That's what she does. Buries people in fear until they fold. But I wasn't folding. Not this time. That night, I made a call to Gerald Whitmore, ex-HOA attorney turned whistleblower. I found him through a forum, retired but sharp as hell. Told him everything. He listened in silence, then said, "You're not fighting neighbors. You're fighting a network." We started digging. HOA records, voting logs, financial trails. Turns out, Victoria wasn't elected. She forged signatures to steal the last election. Not only that, she'd been funneling HOA funds into BNC Entertainment LLC, a shell company. Registered under Chase Harlow. Gerald paused. "If you prove election fraud, you collapse her power." He smiled. "But we'll need more. You ready to go deeper? I was bruised, broke, and pissed off. Let's burn it down." We traced the money. Dozens of wire transfers. From the HOA fund straight into BNC Entertainment. Masked as community outreach and pool upgrades. A joke. But then, I noticed something off. That morning I got in my car and halfway to Gerald's office, my brakes gave out. I swerved. Slammed the emergency brake. Barely missed a tree. Shaking, I called a tow truck. The mechanic came back pale. Brake line was cut, clean, deliberate. My blood ran cold. Gerald's voice over the phone. "You were targeted. They know you're close. I wasn't just digging anymore. I was a threat. And they wanted me gone. But that just confirmed one thing. We were hitting the nerve, and someone up top was scared." I didn't flinch. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one. I sent Gerald everything. Footage, bank trails, witness statements. We built a case airtight. And then, we made a plan. The next HOA meeting. Victoria planned a vote to fine me for unauthorized security devices. Perfect. We'd flip the script, expose everything in front of the entire community. Gerald got to work. He filed motions, contacted the state board, even looped in an old EPA contact. And me, I gathered faces. Stephanie's parents. 2 teens who OD'd and survived. Even Derek Victoria's fiancé, he reached out. Said he had something to confess. I didn't know if the HOA would believe us, but I'd make damn sure they couldn't ignore us. The night before the meeting, I got another warning. A brick thrown through my front window. Taped to it was a note. "Cancel the show, or we cancel you." 2 minutes later, headlights lit up my driveway. Black SUV, tinted windows. Didn't stop, just watched. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding. Called Gerald. He sounded calm. They're rattled. That's good. Means they know what's coming. But then, Derek called. whispering, panicked. She's not working alone. I froze. Who? A man. Big time, politically connected. He bankrolls the parties, owns the shell companies. He's showing up tomorrow to make sure she wins the vote. So this wasn't just HOA corruption anymore. It was organized crime. And tomorrow, it all explodes. The HOA clubhouse was packed. Standing room only. Neighbors press whispers. Victoria walked in like she owned the place. Power suit, perfect smile. Chase behind her like a lapdog. She grabbed the mic. Before we begin, I'd like to propose an emergency vote. Gasps. To fine Marcus Langley $5,000 for unauthorized surveillance harassment and disruption of HOA peace. Some clapped, others looked confused. Then she leaned in smug, "Let's restore order to Oak Creek Estates." That's when I stood up. Actually, I've got something to say too. The room quieted. Cameras turned, phones came out. I walked to the front, plugged in my laptop. Slide 1, Chase handing out drinks to teens. Slide 2, Stephanie's ER report. Slide 3, HOA bank statements. And then I said, "You want order. Let's start with the truth." Slide after slide. Chase collecting cash. Kids passed out. Messages between him and clients. I read off numbers over $600,000 made in 3 years, all from my backyard. Neighbors gasped. Some shouted. Others covered their mouths. Then came the smoking gun video of Chase calling 911, fake drowning just to get me to open my gate. He turned white. Victoria stood frozen. "You're lying," she shouted. I clicked again. Email logs. HOA votes tampered with. Forged ballots. Then the back doors burst open. 2 uniformed officers, a state investigator, and an EPA official. One read aloud, "Victoria Harlow, you are under investigation for election fraud, endangering minors, and financial crimes. Please step forward." The room erupted. Phones up. Neighbors stunned. Justice had entered the room. Victoria backed away, shaking. "This is a setup. I demand a lawyer, Chase." He bolted, sprinted out the emergency exit. Officers followed. But before they reached him, a tall man in a gray suit stepped forward. Slicked back hair, cold eyes, confident smirk. He raised a hand. Enough. Everyone froze. The EPA agent turned startled. Whispered to Gerald, "That's Daniel Brookstone. Developer. Political donor. Untouchable." Victoria's eyes widened. "You said you wouldn't show your face." He ignored her. "Damage control. You failed." I stepped forward. "You're the one bankrolling this mess." He smiled. "You're not smart enough to understand how things work." Gerald whispered, "That's the real puppet master. This wasn't over. It was just getting started." Gerald stepped up beside me. Calm. Calculated. He handed the EPA agent a folder. Wire transfers, corporate ties, emails between Brookstone and Victoria. Daniel laughed. "So what? HOA votes and teenagers, I fund state campaigns." "You think this sticks?" the investigator replied coldly. "We think it leads to federal racketeering charges." Daniel's smile faltered. Then Victoria collapsed into a chair, pale, shaking. "He told me it was all legal. He said I'd get my life back." She buried her face in her hands. "I didn't want this. Not like this." Gerald whispered, "She's cracking." And in that moment, the woman who ruled Oak Creek like a tyrant was reduced to nothing more than a pawn. Victoria looked up, eyes hollow. "You want the truth?" The room went silent. "I lost everything. My husband. The Dragon Plaza deal. My name was blacklisted." She pointed at Daniel. "He found me at my lowest, said he could resurrect me, but I had to do things. Dirty things." Gerald asked softly, "Like what, forging HOA ballots, filing fake permits, hosting parties to entertain his clients?" A gasp swept the room. "I sold out my soul, so my son could have the life I lost." She turned to me. I'm not asking forgiveness, but understand I wasn't always this monster. But sympathy didn't come easy, because monsters still leave real scars. Outside the clubhouse, sirens screamed. Chase was tackled mid-sprint by state officers, handcuffed, kicking, screaming. Inside, Gerald stood. Now let the victim speak. A teenage girl rose slowly. Stephanie. I trusted them. They gave me alcohol. When I blacked out, they laughed. Her father held her hand tight. Another boy stood. Chase charged us $80 for fake vodka. One kid never woke up. Gasps, anger, tears. The investigator nodded. We'll be launching a full-scale inquiry into Paradise Pool and all affiliated parties. Victoria didn't speak. She just stared at the floor, her world shattered. Justice wasn't a maybe anymore. It had begun, and this time it had teeth. The room erupted. People stood, clapping, cheering. One neighbor shouted, "We're with you, Marcus." Another added, "About time someone cleaned house." Gerald smiled. The investigator approached me. "You're no longer under any HOA sanctions. In fact, you may have just saved lives." It felt like air for the first time in weeks. But just as things settled, Derek stepped forward, nervous, sweating. "There's something else." He pulled out a phone. Voice memos, texts, bank trails. Gerald furrowed his brow. From who, Derek whispered a name no one mentioned yet. Carolyn, HOA secretary. She's been erasing complaints, funneling funds. The room chilled again. The rot went deeper. Carolyn sat in the back, arms crossed, stone-faced. Gerald walked toward her. "Would you like to explain these wire transfers?" She didn't flinch, didn't blink. I read aloud, 37 complaints erased. 14 fake contractor approvals. Over $120,000 missing from HOA funds. Whispers spread like wildfire. Carolyn stood up slow and deliberate. "You think Victoria ran this alone?" She laughed, dry and bitter. "This HOA's been corrupt for years. She just had the guts to take it further." Gerald leaned in. "How many others?" She sneered. "You'll need a bigger whiteboard." The room froze. This wasn't just about Victoria anymore. The entire HOA board was infected. The clubhouse exploded with noise, shouts, accusations, rage. They stole our money. They endangered our kids. "Every one of them needs to go." I stepped forward. "Then let's do it. New elections, new leadership, right here, right now." Cheers erupted. Gerald raised a folder. Bylaw 14.2, emergency vote allowed in cases of gross misconduct. Hands shot up, unanimous. Carolyn was escorted out. Other board members slinked away, heads down. The state investigator turned to us. "We'll be launching a full forensic audit of this HOA and its officers." I looked around the room, faces I'd once thought indifferent or hostile. Now united. We weren't just cleaning house, we were reclaiming it. 2 days later, the news hit. FBI raid on Brookstone properties. Dozens arrested. Asset seizures in 4 states. Turns out Daniel Brookstone wasn't just a developer. He was laundering money through fake HOA maintenance contracts across 17 neighborhoods. The raves, the fake, permits, the tax fraud, all part of his empire. He even had 2 sheriffs, a judge, and a state legislator on his payroll. I watched the press conference from my porch. Gerald called. We finally cracked it. Victoria and Chase facing decades behind bars. But Daniel, he flipped, cut a deal, turned on every official he ever paid. The dominoes were falling, and Oak Creek finally off his map. A week later, I stood outside my gate. The same gate Chase tried to break. Now freshly painted, reinforced, secure. Arthur approached holding a clipboard. Behind him, dozens of neighbors. He smiled. "We took a vote." I blinked. "For what?" He handed me the form. "Marcus Reed, interim HOA president. Unanimous approval." I laughed, stunned. I didn't fight to join the system. Arthur chuckled. That's exactly why you should lead it. People clapped, some hugged. Even Stephanie handed me a thank you card. Inside was a sketch, my pool. No crowds, no chaos, just peace. For the first time. I felt it again. Home. Mine. And truly safe. A letter arrived. No return address. But I knew that handwriting. Victoria Harlow. I hesitated, then opened it. Marcus. If you're reading this, it means I finally stopped lying mostly to myself. I was a monster. But monsters, too, are made. Brookstone didn't just steal my money, he took my choices. I let revenge raise my son. I turned him into me. I don't ask for forgiveness, only that when this is all over, you swim just once in that pool without fear. I never could. I sat in silence. Not pity, not sympathy, but a strange, heavy kind of peace. She wasn't innocent, but maybe, just maybe. She was finally done running. I never asked to be a hero, I just wanted peace. But sometimes, to protect what's yours, you have to fight harder than those trying to take it. If you own something, your home, your truth, your dignity, don't let anyone bully you off your ground. Sometimes the most dangerous people wear smiles and hold titles. They hide behind rules, they bend for gain. Technology didn't just record their crimes. It gave me a voice when no one else would listen. And while justice may take time, truth has a way of surfacing always. So, if you're watching this, stand firm. Protect what matters, and never underestimate your quiet courage. If this story moved you, click like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. See you in the next one. And stay safe always. Thank you.